All right. How's everyone doing? Okay. Hope everyone's had a good day so far. Brian Boyce came up to me and said, "This conference is so hardcore." And I was reminded of Elon Musk's email yesterday. I'm not sure if you guys saw that, but he gave Twitter employees 24 hours to decide if they were hardcore enough. But you guys are certainly hardcore, and we saved a very hardcore for the presentation for the afternoon. I'd like to introduce Bach Tsan. He's a senior mechanical engineer at the California Energy Commission. Some of the feedback we've gotten at previous CalBEM symposiums is like, we want to hear more from the California Energy Commission staff directly. So we're very happy that Bach can join us. We're very happy that Will and many of the CEC folks have been able to join today and tomorrow. We know it's you guys are super busy, and it's a big time commitment to have a day and a half. So we really appreciate you being here. Bach's going to present on CBECC 2022 and some of the updates. As many of you know, Bach, when he was previously at Southern California Edison, was helped to organize and shepherd CalBEM, so it's exciting that he's continued to be part of the community now that he's at the California Energy Commission. We are going to try to save some time for questions, so if you are online, please put your questions in the appropriate folks in place, and we'll try to get those. Without further ado, Bach.
So hopefully I'm amongst friends here. But yeah, when I was walking into this room here, there was a lot of hot air, and it was very heated discussions there. I'm happy to be here and to present on behalf of the Building Standards Branch of the California Energy Commission. I'm actually much happier to see that more of the California Energy Commission is here. The entire software tools staff are minus one or two, but are physically here, and hopefully you get a chance to mingle with them and realize how much work they've done over the past few years and just this year alone. So we'll cover some of that. Just quickly, I'm going to go over a quick overview, look at what maybe CBECC 2019 to 2022 what occurred there, in progress feature developments that we'd like to share with you. I want to spend a little bit more time maybe having a discussion on priority list development. I know that's a pretty heavy topic for us and this group. And a brief look into the future of what we're at least researching and following. So, and then the discussion is the decision. Anyway. Late night typing. So, but hopefully everyone knows the 2022 Energy Code is alive and well and approved through our process, and it's effective January 1st, 2023. So, like I said, it's for the most part everything is in order, and when the new year turns, it's active. I'm going to talk a little bit about the overview of CBECC. I know a lot of people in this room are much more adept at understanding these graphs here. But it's, what is CBECC? And, it's California's Building Energy Code compliance software. It's used to help demonstrate, Title 24 performance path by creating a building simulation model with the approved software platform. The CBECC in its current iteration to a certain degree existed since 2013 when we converted to the software you see today. We prescribe that it's with CBECC Res, you're using the California simulation engine, and with CBECC COM, or CBECC now these days, it has an Energy Plus. So your key structures, you have a graphical user interface, you implement rule sets, you have a compliance connection either with Energy Plus simulation engine or this California simulation engine. you have a report generator and an API. If you really want to get into this, Southern California Edison had a good report that was generated by Will Vicent on the California roadmap, and it kind of talks about in detail what the data inputs are, what a calculation engine is, the graphical user interface, and the data outputs. So just quick changes in CBECC. We renamed it. It's not CBECC-COM anymore, it's CBECC. So if anyone, RJ or Nikhil, correct me if that's not, if there's an additional wording there. It's the simulation engine integration, we married the two, the CSE into CBECC. So for the dwelling units and multifamily, it's using the CSE engine common areas, and non-res, it's using Energy Plus. So it integrates both non-res and low-rise and high-rise multifamily. The compliance is based on 3 metrics, so efficiency, total compliance CDV, and total compliance source energy. Battery and photovoltaic and battery systems are much more critical to achieving compliance. And we added project and building level inputs for air barrier. So I joke, but I put the warp core engine here, and it performs much faster than used to, but it is a fairly complex simulation engine that's in CBECC now. So quickly, what changed from 2019? We obviously implemented the code changes that are coming to 2022. I really suggest you probably go to the some of the resources that Chris O'Vera's O&E team has on the code changes, and also Energy Code ACE, but they will cover in detail what changed. So, standard HVAC system mapping has changed, and they reflect the 2022. Heat pumps are kind of a big adjustment. I think Meg Weltner in the Power Talks actually covered a lot of this stuff. Standard fan design power credits are implemented with allowances based on system capacity, expanded economizer requirements. So heat recovery is modeled in the standard design now, and airflow rate. So these are some of the new items that are included in the non-residential space. So a lot of our resources were integrated, were put into multifamily restructuring. So that was a huge change this year. So what changed in 2019 is just integrating this into the energy model, or the energy software. So these projects that were compiled under 2019 will have to have some additional energy efficiency items to comply for 2022. So this graphic here kind of shows what the software team was working on this year. So I already mentioned this, leverages both engines. There's some just new requirements in code. All right. So, and CBECC res changes, just quickly, there's we enhanced some capabilities. ACM mapping is updated, but this you can pretty much find on the CBECC what's new, but implemented battery storage systems, and allowed for, the previous versions only allowed for models with no on-site PV. We updated PV exception or PV requirement exceptions, batteries. There's cooling design set points that were updated, ducting for heat pump and water heaters in conditioned space. There are some exceptions. There are items related to standalone batteries and dual fuel heat pumps that are in CBECC res. All right. So all electric modeling is a little bit easier this year. I think Meg covered this, and she went into pretty good detail of where the pitfalls were and where they were more beneficial this year. But for the most part, if you proposed gas, then your standard design is gas, but if you propose electric, your standard design is heat pump. We added some demand response for heat pump water heaters. And, basically, the standard design assumes heat pump water heater in all climate zones, but gas types are allowed in climate zones 3, 4, 13, 14. And then those systems also has a standard design and assumes heat pump space conditioning systems. Right? So I think we're aware of this, but you don't have to comply with 2 metrics anymore. It's 3. So efficiency, total compliance, TDP, and compliance versus energy. So I don't necessarily know we need to kind of go into this too much, and I'm sure other working groups have talked about this, but for proposed building to comply, you're going to have to meet these 3 items. So basically, your source energy and EDR are used to represent the greenhouse gas emissions of the building. That's EDR 1. Efficiency, EDR 2 is considered the efficiency EDR for the energy efficiency features of the building, and the final EDR that combines the efficiency and the credit for PV with demand flexibility. So for your building to comply, it just has to, the EDR must be equal or smaller than the source EDR. The proposed EDR2 must be equal or smaller than EDR2 of the standard design, and the total EDR2 must be equal or less than the standard design of total EDR1. So I guess thank you that we added the third, these metrics. This has, for 2025, this is slightly changed, but we'll go into that. Features and development. So these are items that we have worked on this year, are in the software, or going to be on the software. Just quickly, California Utility Allowance Calculator. We've been, thank you to a lot of the CalBEM folks here that have helped with the non-residential air to water heat pump studies. And there's some studies on variable capacity heat pumps, an updated algorithm that's been included into the CBECC res with, I call it the detailed input, but there's more data that you can use to generate the curves. So we are looking into heat recovery chillers next. We are prioritizing heat pump related features and have residential air to water heat pump that's currently being developed. My understanding is Bruce isn't here because he's working on that feature. So the California Utility Allowance Calculator, I'm not sure if anyone's been paying attention. I think last week we had 2 workshops, and one of them was the, I'll say CUAC. To me, it's the Utility Allowance Calculator. I think Tao is somewhere here, but she's spent most of her life, and her and Scott have been real close friends over the past few months. But they put that in, and it's a tool used by the, I think, CTAC, which is California Tax Credit Allotment. It's developed by the CEC, and it helps. It's meant for new construction, rehabilitation projects, and tax credit with to offset tenant loads. But it's mainly a tool to help. And we had to update this tool because the older tool, which I think was based on, Access or something, but that's being kind of sunset. But we created a new tool that this should replace. So I guess this will be included in the 2022 2.1 release. It's already out for public review. Like I said, we had the workshop last week. The public comment period was extended to November 22nd, so those that haven't looked at it, you can look at it and provide comments. And the expected final is to be posted in December 15th. Right. So air to water heat pumps. It's not a secret that it's a system that we've been looking at for quite some time, and it's meant to kind of help with electrifying or decarbonization of buildings, but it's a product that we've just included this year, thanks to Nikhil and team, but it's included in the 2019 software. It will be included in the CBECC updates. It uses the Energy Plus object, but that object was developed for the domestic hot water heater module, where he took the development of this was with, we took three plus curves and kind of created a, well, we took curves from different three manufacturers and kind of created a curve for this module. And it's been tested by the CalBEM community. So for the most part, it turned out well, and we are implementing it, and it'll be, and I think from Jared's talk tomorrow, he'll kind of show that we've been using that in some of the developments for the next code cycle. So future development, we'll look at different design configurations. We'd like to engage the Energy Plus community because they have a heat pump plant module that we'd like to continue to develop, and we would like more example curves for these heat pump systems. All right. For variable capacity heat pump algorithm, I think we currently have a variable capacity compliance option. We, with the help of PG&E and the IOUs, we're looking at a different algorithm. It's I call it the detailed input, but you are able to put the data for the system, for different curves. This was taken a lot from the NEEP, the NEEP list, and it's expected to kind of expand systems that are not just low static and ductless, but it includes centrally ducted systems, but you can have more systems included. So the model incorporates some of these items for ductwork losses, and what we've actually noticed was that the NEEP curves seem to have better represent the performance of these systems than the actual ratings. Currently, we're working with the CalBEM community to look at this algorithm, and they're kind of sifting through this list. There's 39,000 systems in the NEEP database, and we're kind of looking at how they're classified and what systems there are. So we're hoping to get kind of that project completed by the end of this year, and figure out if we should find ways to incorporate this algorithm into another compliance option. As I said, it's not need data, it's NEEP data, but it seems to be a better representation of the VCHP systems. So those are kind of the items that we've been working on over the past year. They're a lot of what's on our plate, but I wanted maybe to focus a little bit of this discussion on the priorities and collaboration. I think it's important that we leverage the use of this community to get better understanding of what the industry and stakeholders need for our software. And the general ask is we're seeking support to evaluate the current process of how do we get features into software and establish kind of a mechanism to bridge that gap between the features list and implementation, meaning there's a countless amount of studies that tell you and surveys that tell you what is out there, what's needed to to meet California's goals and the new technology out there. But we need to start figuring out how to get from list and ideas to implementation in the software. So our current tools that we use are SourceForge. I mean, on this, once you get the presentation, you can click on these, but we have CBECC, CBECC Red, SourceForge. We are starting to look at using GitHub to manage some, track and manage bug fixes. And when we get these ideas through the docket process, we have a compliance option, which I'll talk a little bit about, and third-party features. The current priorities basis, our prioritization comes from 15-day business terms, anything that, case reports, draft ACM manuals from the case team lists mistakes. So these items feed into what we want to start working on. We prioritize them based on high, medium, load, or hold, but they're currently we're focused on what's required for 2022. Is it a prescriptive requirement or a compliance option? The impact to energy budgets, demand from stakeholders, and level of difficulty for these aren't really going to change much, but we are currently basing our prioritization levels based on these items. So this is a compliance option path, and I think there's a project and evaluation underway that is looking at how compliance options are pushed through, but this is one path for getting features into software, and it's and I think we have a 2005 or 2007 document. So no matter what, it's outdated, but it gives kind of that process to get the compliance option in a new feature into the software. Just a quick look at the timeline, and this gives you kind of a general idea on what policy gives us in terms of actual time frame to evaluate a compliance option. Or exceptional method or compliance option. And it's, in theory, it gives us 240 days from the application to getting approved. But this process can actually take more than 8, 9, 10 months, as you can imagine. For the air-to-water heat pump item, it took, 2, 3 years? So we want to find ways to improve this and be a little more transparent with how these items occurred. So priorities counted, right now we're determining what the process of developing feature lists. We would like, kind of ask CalBEM and the community, think of a mechanism. Can we figure out, how do we track features? What are the desired ACM rules? Get a kind of a curate and develop a centralized list that is prioritized on the CalBEM side, and marry it with the priorities that the Energy Commission has. We'd like to maybe meet a couple of times a year to reevaluate. There's vetting. The help we want is to vet resource allocation, funding. I think this is all within the purview of some of the work with CalBEM does, and maybe assist with the software proposal that working, maybe through Working Group 3, but for example, the casework that features need CalBEM to help with preliminary rule sets and data. So I'm told I don't have much time left, but core questions that we ask is, does it save energy? Does it have a market? Can it be modeled? And these are the general criteria we're looking at. That's, can it be modeled? Is it listed in the ACM? Is it already included in a public domain reference computer program? Is it data supported? Kind of these ideas, what the data can be either a technical paper, information presented to society, proceeding, and results from lab tests. Looking to tie these features with action. So in theory, what's the path? Is there an ideation process that we should think of? is there a difference between compliance option and a features development? And there's transparency with optics. And optics, that we want to be transparent with this group, or not just this group, but the entire public. But it would be good to kind of tie the ideas with a actionable items. So this is currently our software proposal process. You kind of develop the software feature, Energy Commission reviews it, we go through a public process to get public comments, and then we implement into the software. Where we could use a little bit of help, or a lot of help, is the development of the software, the research behind it, the algorithms, the coding of it. It would be good to kind of get some support on that end. And also the implementation. We need a little bit of help with testing and development of that. So 22 plus, 2025, we updated the weather models as the SLCC last week, or the energy accounting workshop last week. We have new prototypes that are being developed. The heat pump baseline is still under development. So I think, when the Ether, or Jared's presentation tomorrow is going to highlight some of these items. Research that we're looking at, 229P, the evaluation rule set implementation, BEM software, that stuff we're following. Neil talked about 205. That's something that we'd like to get information on. I think I don't know if I should mention this, but the PenXG PRM method we're looking at, and then the ASHRAE method of testing. So these are things that we're following, amongst other things. So just collaborative presentations, I kind of leave it at that. These are things that we would, these are projects that are ongoing that that are coordinated with what we're working on. So Jared's going to talk about metrics, in his life cycle cost source energy metrics, the compliance manual solution, Energy Solutions kind of spearheading that, and then Haley with his task of looking at the energy conservation documents. All right, so hopefully I didn't bore you, but I went through that pretty quickly. This is my contact information, and I guess we are ready for questions.
All right, thanks, Bach. I told you all that would be hardcore. So, any questions in the audience to kick things off? Gina. And Gina, if you could just say your name so folks online can know who's asking the question.
Gina.
Thanks, Gina.
You had mentioned for CBECC Res that there's some modeling capability that had been integrated for 2022 for ducted heat pump water heaters. Is that being transferred over to CBECC for multifamily dwelling units also?
I'm looking at RJ there.
We would imagine it. I think we would.
Oh, all right.
I would imagine. I love it when the Energy Commission says that, by the way. Should be.
Can we give RJ a mic? Or do you want to respond to that? Okay.
Individual versus central.
Hi, Aaliyah German with Frontier Energy. So Bach, you talked about kind of a formal process that included some public review and comment period. Is there a differentiation between kind of larger software upgrades and more features? Because we haven't always seen that with every
Understood.
upgrade to the software.
Yeah, so I think that that's part of the reason why we're asking to kind of look at the process. It's not, there's no formal alignment. However, I think what we're starting to look at is if there's a compliance option method, which is anyone can kind of do an application for and run through the, the 110, the 10, 104, 109 methodology. But what we're trying to figure out maybe a mechanism where that there is an alignment between a features prioritization that industry has or CalBEM curates, and if there's an alignment with the Energy Commission's priority list, we would probably work towards putting that feature as a maybe a combined feature or something that we would see as a quicker, try to make that feature I don't know, more priority or get that to be worked on first. I think the general idea is the Energy Commission works on certain things that are needed for that code cycle and for that software, but additional features that are not necessarily a need, but a want from industry. I think we would seek support to get that developed. I think one of the things is we don't have a formal process, or we don't. The energy code goes through the template, and I would say the case process, but I think software needs kind of that formalized approach. We need to figure out what that package looks like. How do we get that information and work with the community and stakeholders to figure out what is needed for every feature, and try to bridge that gap between an idea and implementation.
So one quick follow-up is, do you envision that that you integrate kind of a public process into these larger updates so that there is this kind of testing and feedback mechanism from the community?
Yeah, I think that's something we'd like to do. I think part of improving that compliance option process is probably to develop that formal path to implementation.
Bach, Ted, Tiffany, within this compliance improvement process in the software, there's a step that we as designers need. And I'll give you a good example with my interaction with Danny Tam, as we had this is early 2019, before we had the central heat pump water heater. We needed to get a permit for a project that had central heat pump water heating. We needed to have a compliance approach that they could go to the AHJ and say, yes, this is compliant. But it also informed what we needed to build into the software package. And it happened at a time that we could do that work. Is there a step in that process that we can add to allow a project with something innovative that can't be modeled to show compliance, get a permit, and then do that work along the way to build it in the software? Because I think that's the big part that we're all struggling with right now, is getting our HJs to be confident that it's a compliant approach, and yes, work with you to get it into the software for the next person that enters it.
I'll have RJ kind of expand on that.
Two different. So there's exceptional design, right? So that's the.
Wait, hold on. Oh, sure. Just for the online folks, please use the mic.
I can go. Sure. Yeah. So this is RJ CC. So there's the exceptional design method, right? So that's a single for that one project, right? And so yeah, if you went through that, we would approve that one project under exceptional design. Or the exceptional method, where we could figure out a method to approve other projects similar to that one. And then that's what Danny did. So we had the exceptional method for those heat pump water heaters, and then we used that to inform the software. And so there are those methods. They take time, those timelines that Bach was showing there. And so trying to figure out ways to do things more quickly is kind of what we're looking at with this. And by leveraging, you know, the IUUs and CalBEM and others to support us and get us those packages so we can review them, approve them, go through the public processes, and then get them in the software or in the ACM for rules so other third parties can use them too. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, Ted, but yeah.
I will encourage you to make that process accessible because it's not at this point.
Yeah, it's,
Would a third option be exceptional circumstance in the modeling box and say, hey, we modeled a code compliant like boiler in place of that piece of equipment, and then the heat pump needs to be like prescriptively
yeah, they've done that, you know, so like with,
asking for a friend?
yeah, when we did the compliance option, yeah. Well, so like for the compliance option for, I think for pump refrigerant economizers, right? We couldn't model it, but we wanted to approve an alternative component package. And then we said, and because you can't model this, you can model it as minimum efficient. So it's this, but that's the same process, right? So we did that through that exceptional method. Yeah, there's just all these processes that it's not to just, yeah, we have to, I guess it's a pretty rigorous process to decide that something's equivalent, and so that's why those are there, but yeah.
Hi, Bach. This is an easy one. The CBECC res is now strictly for single family. Is that correct? So
Single family and duplexes.
and duplexes, and then all multifamily has moved to what used to be CBECC COM, right?
Yeah.
So if it's less than 3 stories, you'll still use CSE, and if it's more than that, you'll use
Well,
energy pro
you use CBEC res and then,
energy plus.
yeah.
It's all CSE. So anything residential in CBEC is CSE.
So even high-rise multifamily, that's CSE.
Yes, CSE engine was integrated into CBEC. So
Okay.
they use both Energy Plus and CSE. And it depends on the space type, which engine they'll use.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have another?
So I guess generally we would like to look at this features process. I think they asked, maybe, I'm not sure which working group this would fit under, but the, you know, as Ted mentioned, it's not well documented, and it would be good to kind of maybe walk through and seeing how we can improve that process. We want to be, I hate to say this, but we want to be more transparent, but we currently don't have a mechanism to do so yet. You know, we currently have SourceForge and maybe GitHub, but that might not be the best media or mechanism to, because those are very software development centric. I think this is slightly a different topic of what features we're currently working on, and how do we let the community know what is currently our priority, and but the community, we also want the community to let us know what is a want on their end, is how do we improve, what is needed to improve compliance and the compliance software. Yeah, one word.
Bach, I know staff is really pressured on this issue too. And what I might suggest is that you get like a mechanical design review board together with RJ to say, hey, my peers, I need this project. I need a compliance approach for this project. Here's my modeling approach. Here's where I see that it meets the intent of the energy code. Can we check a box that this is a compliance approach that is not yet in the software, and have that mechanical review board, if you will, if you want to use that term, help develop that in the next version of the software. I think that's a way to do that takes the burden off staff and actually puts all of these professionals in a room looking at that documentation and saying, yeah, it's a reasonable approach. Maybe that's something we can get in the software and we enable it. I would volunteer for that. I know half my colleagues would probably put their expertise to that. Maybe one project out of 10,000 that need to use that process, but we need to be able to use that process.
So Ted, Working Group 1 tomorrow is going to be discussing this idea of a third-party review of compliance projects. It might fall right into that, not just mechanical, but other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a modeling review board,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it, compliance review board.
Yep.
Great. Thanks for that idea.
Yeah, thanks Ted for queuing that up. So let's give Bach another round of applause. Thank you.